I have to say I'm very much looking forward to this session, looking at sustainable procurement across the Middle East. And in the conversations I've had with our presenters, been actually really quite surprised, and I don't know why I'm surprised, but really quite surprised as to how advanced sustainable procurement is across the Middle East, or certainly the colleagues who are talking. I don't know, I just made this typical European assumption that we're ahead of the game, but actually that shows the sort of the misapprehension that I've got. And actually, there's some amazing stuff that's happening in across the Middle East that we're going to hear about today, which is very exciting. So we'll just wait for 1 more minute, and then we'll kick off. Just to remind everyone, this is being recorded, so it'll be on the YouTube channel, SPP YouTube channel. It'll go live over the next couple of days. So if anyone wants to follow up and watch, that's great. At a later date, and certainly you'll be able to sort of pass the YouTube link around to your colleagues, so you can sort of share the leadership and share the thinking that we're going to cover today. We are going to have some Q&A, and so as people have questions, just to make it really complicated, we've got chat and we've got Q&A, 2 areas. So I think we'll use the yes, well, so you can ask a question, so we'll pick that up as well as we go into it. So I think I'm going to kick off now. We've got sort of a good few people. There might well be a few people joining us in a moment, but let's get going so we don't go over our due time. My name's Guy Battle. I'm the co-chair of the public sector chapter for the Sustainable Procurement Pledge, and today really pleased to welcome you to a session that we're running on sustainable procurement across the Middle East. Really exciting to see what's happening, and what, as I said at the top, is quite. I'm really excited by the fact that the Middle East is doing so much amazing things, and actually in many ways showing real leadership and showing the rest of us how to take things forward. I'm going to control the slides, and colleagues are going to tell me when they want me to move it. But I'm going to kick off just by talking to you a little bit about the Sustainable Procurement Pledge, so those who are new to it will understand what it's all about, and a bit about the chapter. Then we're going to dive into the presentations. We'll have discussions. Please use the Q&A, ideally the Q&A rather than the chat, for any questions that you have. And I think we might well be able to bring people in to ask their question rather than me just answering it. So be ready to jump in if you've got a question. And we'll go for about an hour and 10 minutes now. Top of the hour. As I mentioned, I'm co-chair with Q, and the 2 of us run the public sector chapter, but we're part of a broader group called the Sustainable Procurement Pledge, and really this is a group of professionals who have an ambition to embed sustainability into procurement. I mean, it is very much focused on procurement, but of course, procurement is wide and broad, as is sustainability, and it covers the triple bottom lines of sustainable social, economic, and environmental aspects. And what we're looking to do is build a network of 1 million people. I'm not quite sure how many we have so far. Charlotte might put that into the chat, but I'm guessing that there's something like 5,000 to 10,000 people already involved in the network, which is great. And so it's a fantastic place to meet colleagues and share ideas and learn from each other. We've got a series of principles that we work towards. So it's all about standing up for people and planet. It's about working together, sharing and listening. It's about leaving that legacy, but I think most of all it's about starting myself, and that's all about the pledge. So what we're looking for everyone to do is to join us, and in that make the pledge towards embedding sustainable procurement. We have a number of different ways of structuring conversations across the organization, and there's a whole series of chapters. So you can join a chapter when you get online. You can join a chapter, and there's a series of country chapters. There are topic chapters, and there's industry chapters. And I think that we don't yet have a chapter for the Middle East. So I think hopefully one of our colleagues who's speaking today will kick off that chapter. We'll be talking to Charlotte after this about actually starting that chapter. So we are part of the chapter that relates to a topic, and so we're the public sector chapter. So as I mentioned, myself and Q run that chapter. We're supported by some colleagues I'll introduce in just a moment. But the way we see the public sector chapter is that I guess it's sort of we see it as the most enormous opportunity. The public sector spends trillions of dollars every year in public procurement, and I guess we're coming at it from an angle that there ought to be strings attached to that spend, or there ought to be an influence expected with that spend. The public sector or the public procurement officers are spending money on behalf of citizens and on behalf of government. And what we're looking to encourage is our public sector colleagues to demand more, if you like, of the private sector. And so that's what this is all about. We think this is the most enormous opportunity. And if there's one sector as a whole that can shift change by setting expectations and standards, it is the public sector and how they're engaged with their supply chain. And so as a group, as a procurement public sector chapter, we're looking to develop that shared definition of what sustainable procurement is within the public sector. We're now beginning to put ideas together and knowledge together about how legislation works in different countries, and we'll be hearing about Middle East here now, identify and share good practice. Ultimately, we're looking to develop guidance documents and a public sector toolkit for practitioners, and then our plan, like this, is to hold regular webinars. Anyone who wants to get involved in the public sector chapter, please reach out, either join or link up with me or Q for that matter, and we'll make sure that you are a part of the conversation and involved in future. So I mentioned the co-chairs, myself and Q, and then we've got a steering committee, Gonzalo, Helen and Patrick, and together we put together this this sort of webinar series and bring people together to have these discussions. So today we are here to talk about sustainable procurement in the Middle East, and I am absolutely delighted to ask to introduce three fantastic speakers, and I'll just do the introductions now at the top of the presentations, and then we'll dive into the presentation. So Sulaiman, Abdulla. Sulaiman has over 17 years of experience in procurement and supply chain management across diverse industries. He's currently the director of the Administrative Affairs Department at the Federal Tax Authority for Dubai, leading procurement, contract supply chain management and administration operations. Sulaiman has a real focus on driving organizational performance and sustainability. We have Vidya Malkani. Vidya has been an executive in leading organizations for over 15 years, specializing in procurement and supply chain management. She's got a proven track record of shaping procurement and supply chain strategies to position the function as a value driver, which in itself is what we're all after. How do we get procurement at the top table, which I think is fundamental. Faiq Khan, a long-serving procurement professional with a distinguished career in the profession. Currently, he is deepening his expertise through a doctorate research program focused on innovative procurement strategies. Faiq has been instrumental in leading transformational procurement projects throughout his career. And then finally, Suwaid Al-Badi. Suwaid is based in Abu Dhabi. He's a seasoned Emirati contract manager with a history of delivering in renewable power generation and sustainable industries, and is currently heading the procurement and contracts department at Masdar City in Abu Dhabi. So that's your lineup. As I said, each speaker is going to speak for about 7 to 10 minutes, leaving us about 20 minutes for a discussion at the end with Q&A. So with that, I'm going to to pass on to Sulaiman, who's going to introduce and talk about his work. Sulaiman, I will operate. If you just say next, we'll go from there.
Thank you very much, Guy, for the introduction. Let's just start. Before we will speak about the great initiative that we have in UAE, let me give you an integrated sustainability principles that I think we all should focus if we're trying to drive sustainability within the organization or even in the country. People, process, technology, and culture and supplier relationship. When it comes to people, I think it's very important. It's all about people. When it comes to sustainability, it's important to think about reskilling and upskilling of people and increasing the awareness of why it's important that we need to focus on sustainability. When it comes to process, it's not only about process, it goes to the strategy, policy, and processes. Most of the organization, if you see that, they add the sustainability part of their strategy, but when it comes to policies or procedure, it doesn't cascade it down. You need to have very important and key, even KPIs to measure your sustainability. So it's from strategy, policies, procedures, your KPIs should be very clear to measure the sustainability. Tools and technologies. Technology is very important enabler. You need to add it through this journey. You cannot just have, one pillar and focus on that without having technology part of your journey. Organization culture is very key part of this journey. You need to build that culture within the organization. Organization need to value more than volume cost. And one of the key elements I always emphasize on that, if you think about sustainability, it's not about cost. You need to add that culture within the organization to focus on value. So it's not only cost, it's a value. Supplier relationship, we are talking about a partnership between public sector and private sectors. Without suppliers, without focusing on suppliers, what the suppliers is doing in the market is very important to capture that, because it's a whole journey when we're focusing on the sustainability. This is top KPIs for procurement and supply chain published by one of the leading research organization. They are focusing on three main KPI: cost, customer service, and sustainability. If you see, sustainability become one of the top KPIs for the organization. However, let's talk about the cost and customer service. When it comes to cost, we always know that cost is very important. Yes. But when it comes to cost, let's focus on, it's all about the total cost of ownership. It's all about the total cost of the time that you're taking in your journey or in your delivery. When it comes to customer service, we always need to focus on customer service, customer centric. One time full delivery is very important. Customer experiences and satisfaction is very important. If you focus on these two elements and focus on sustainability, you will realize that these three pillars and KPIs are integrated together. So you cannot just only focus on sustainability without focusing on customer centric and customer experiences. So sustainability become one of the main KPI on top of the organization, and cost and customer service and centric aside with that KPI need to be focused on to drive sustainability and change within the organization. Next, Guy. This is one of the innovative solution and initiatives in UAE for a sustainable future. The initiative is called in-country value. So basically, in the next slide, we will talk about what that in-country value involves. Now, on the left side of the slide, I have presented how that piece of certification, what it includes as a certification. Basically, in-country value include three main points, for a supplier to be registered in this initiative. One, it really enhanced the local capabilities and create job for UAE nationals. So one of the measures the private sectors is measured is their contribution and hiring capabilities for UAE nationals. This is one. Second part, increase the contribution of private sectors and national economy. So basically, the public sector and the supplier, what's their contribution to the economy of the country? And basically, it boosts local economy development as well by supporting the SMEs within the country. What is the importance of ICV and procurement content? Four main elements. The first one, economic growth, is very important as it's encouraging investment in local economy. Second part is creating job. It's prioritizing employment opportunities for UAE nationals. So UAE nationals are more engaged and be part in the developing of the private sectors. Local industry development, support local suppliers and industries, and mainly is sustainability by promoting long-term economic sustainability by developing local skills and infrastructures. If you think about it, it's always focused on economy and create job opportunities for UAE nationals which will support the economy of the country and pushing the SMEs to become a better position and boost the sustainability at the end. Okay, and a federal organization, how we're implementing in-country values program and procurement process. So we're dividing it in two ways. One, spend above 5 million and spend below 5 million. So we'll go now talk about how the process works for the spend below 5 million. As per the procurement process, I'll try to make it very easy to explain this slide. For process below 5 million, there are three levels of evaluation: technical evaluation, commercial evaluation, and the ICV, the National Content Program certificate itself. So it has two different services, like services and goods, and it has different weight for each evaluation criteria. However, when it comes to your awarding processes, every supplier has to have the mandate to submit the ICV certification with the scoring of that ICV certification and should be valid. Without having that, the organization has two options, whether to proceed with it and force the suppliers to show the evidence that he registered if he doesn't have the ICV certification, or simply award the best companies when it comes to technical and commercial and highest in ICV program. This process for the spend below 5 million dirham. And let's talk about the spend above 5 million. There will be a technical phase only. First of all, the technical evaluation will happen. All the companies who are participated in the sourcing process will be evaluated technically. So once they pass the technical phase, the top three ranked in ICV program will go to next phase for commercial evaluation. In the commercial evaluation with these three top suppliers, they will be going through a reverse auction process. So basically what happened here, for above 5 million spend, it's mandatory for all suppliers to have an ICV program to be part of this procurement process and get award. So it's not an optional, it's mandatory. With this framework, you see that today in the MENA region, and especially in the UAE, is taking sustainability as a key and a mandate to drive sustainability within the organization, which will impact, the whole, will have an impact on as a value to the country in the long run. With this slide, I think my colleague will continue now.
Great. Thanks very much, Sulaiman. Really interesting presentation. And I think what we'll do, we'll pick that up later. And in particular, I'm interested in some of the outcomes you're beginning to generate as a result of ICV and this sort of work. Excellent. Thanks so much for that. Now we've got Faiq, who's going to take us through looking from his perspective how sustainable procurement is being developed across the Middle East. Faiq, over to you. You're on mute, Faiq, by the way.
Great. Yeah, thank you. So thank you, Guy. Thank you, Sulaiman, for the wonderful session. I mean, there's a lot to learn in every session that we become part of, and we are happy to share a lot that we have achieved in last many years. But where did it all start? In sustainable procurement practices, having been involved in corporate procurement for many years. So Guy, we move to the next slide, please. Yeah, so there's a statement that says that today whatever shade we have is because somebody planted. So are we going to plant? It's not just about a tree being planted. It's about many other factors that could be supported today that helps the generations to come. Remember, we are borrowing the future from the generations to come. Next slide. So sustainability is split into 17 different sustainable development goals. What we usually think is about climate change, climate action, clean energy. You know, we switch on light, switch off light. You know, it should not be overused. Consumption and production. This is what the usual perception about sustainability is. But there are 17 sustainable development goals, and we've listed down all of these. A lot of the people would already know about it, but the objective of showcasing it is that there could be a lot of factors that could be covered in, and it's not just about the climate action, not just about the clean energy, while those play a major role, but there are many other factors as well that can be considered, that can be contributed through procurement. Remember, the power of procurement is so strong that any engagement, any third party supplier engagement, any contractual engagement that goes through either a tendering exercise or through other factors, but all goes through the procurement team. So where we can fit in, what probably things can be documented in there, what additions could be made in there is something that we can add on, and probably I'll be picking up a lot of those things on steps, what we have achieved, what we have done so far. Next slide. Yeah, so here is a high level overview of there has been a confusion across ESG and sustainability. So sustainability is an overall factor, and then it gets split into ESG factors, where environmental has, out of those 17 SDGs that we talked about, the sustainable development goals, it splits into environment, and I'll just read through. I'll not go into too much details about it because each one goes into a lot of depth. There's a lot of technicalities into it. Clean water, affordable energy, responsible consumption, climate action, the life below water, life on land. Social factors could be on the poverty front, zero hunger, good health and well-being. We see a lot of initiatives in UAE on, in the month of November, which is for sports and a lot of marathons that happen. Quality education, right to it, gender equality, decent work and economic growth, recent reduced inequalities, sustainable cities, and peace, justice, and strong institutions. On the governance side, we have the innovation, infrastructure, and partnerships for the goals. Now there are two which are within the environment and governance phase as well, and also within the social and governance, which is for the peace, justice, and strong institutions. Next slide, please. Now, this is one important slide, I would say, because there is always a question around evaluating whether you want to write a policy or whether you want to implement it. To be honest, there is not one single thing that you can look at. Start with a basic document. start to commit to some aspects. We've all been hearing about managed print services. Procurement has led this initiative, and I've been involved in many places where you work towards centralizing the managed print solutions and trying to work towards it over a period of next 2 to 3 years to reduce the print, start getting questions for the stakeholders why they are printing. So whether there is a document or whether you go for an action, to be honest, it's a combination of both. Start documenting a few things and start taking actions. Don't wait. There's never an ideal procurement policy or a sustainable procurement policy. We've done it for few engagements, few organizations, both public and private. And trust me, there is never a very clear-cut step or roadmap for sustainability or procurement transformation in those cases. Whether you set up KPIs or whether you set up results, start with basics. Start the advantage that we have got being in UAE, being in Middle East, that we had COP28. We learned a lot. We got some live sessions going through it, and those same sessions, those same practices, we came back, tried to implement it. We did not go big bang. The targets are 2030. 2050, but you don't need to wait for another couple of years to pass in. You have to start now, same like the procurement transformation automation practices, in order not to be left behind. So either you keep planning or you define a certain percentage criteria. So there's a very good pointer that my colleague Sulaiman highlighted on the percentage. Allocate percentage, and if there is an ICV percentage that shows some value, try to utilize those. Now, maybe we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, so this is one important aspect. Trust me, the quality management systems, ISO 9001, you will see all of those people wearing a badge and continuously promoting their practices. You will see information security professionals talking about the 27001. But tell me, which procurement professional has talked about sustainable procurement ISO 2400? We have to talk about it. We have to engage ourselves in it, get certified. Everybody cannot be certified, but yes, it is important to be aware of it, move step ahead. There are some interesting guidelines to it. Social responsibility, another aspect of the sustainability aspect, 26,000. And some of the factors that we have practically utilized, the ISO 14001 that talks about environmental management systems. If there is anything related to facilities management, if there is anything related to manufacturing, if there is any procurement that you're doing related to hardware of technology, the hardware technology or software in terms of technology, are you considering the 14,001 practices, or are these certified? A lot of these solutions or products that we procure, they are certified with it. So just a few highlights here. COP28, lucky to have. So the government has set these standards. Government has got this initiative for us. Now it is up to us to take that step ahead, go forward for the implementation, and take it further. Some examples we have listed down to measure within the organizations what is our water footprint. There are technology solutions that support these initiatives. We have done few of these, and the objective of showcasing here is to give certain examples along with the ICV example that was shared. Is you just don't have to look at trees plantation. There are so many other opportunities. The banking sector looks at investment footprint, the profitability footprint, the debt footprint. What is the level of investment that they have done on the financials, and what is the debt footprint, the ecological footprint, carbon footprint? We tend to hear quite a lot. So some good examples, we may look at many others more. Different organizations, different industries have different, like the public sector has ICV related, and many others similarly, or industries will have. Also, one very good initiative that the government has placed in last couple of years in the region is local manufacturing. initiating manufacturing of pharma, initiating the FMCG products, and giving benefits to those local manufacturers is one very interesting thing that is happening. So we can always look at those alternatives. Challenges, solutions, yes, we might always keep on highlighting challenges, but yes, there are always solutions, and that's what we have always looked at, which allowed us to implement quite a lot of solutions. So lack of collaboration, stakeholder management in everything we do in procurement is quite important. Collaboration in the value chain, insufficient knowledge. Yes, there is a lot of learning awareness sessions. If you are aware about something, ISO 2400, if you get to know about certain information, try to share it further within the organization. Try to engage your stakeholders internally, keep them updated, and so that they become your ambassadors internally to support. And try to, almost majority of the organizations today have the sustainability function, or the team members. Try to connect with them and try to share with them your processes, your frameworks, where the sustainability factor can pitch in. Yeah, so that's all from my side. Thank you, Guy.
Thanks so much, Faiq. And I think a couple of messages I took out of that. One, it's complex. And two, even though it's complex, let's just get on with it and do it, right? Even though it's not perfect. Thanks. We'll come back to those issues later. Now, Vidya. Here we go.
Thank you very much, Guy. Right, so I think we've heard some wonderful things from Sulaiman and Faiq. Now let's talk a little bit about what happens on ground, right? So sustainability is such a big and vast topic. Obviously, procurement cannot drive all of this, or procurement does not control the decision making when it comes to sustainability within organizations. So what can procurement do, and what do we do today? Guy, if you can move on to the next one. Right, so typically in procurement, what do we see in our day-to-day work, right? Procurement will initiate a conversation saying, we need to drive sustainability initiatives. And a typical conversation with business usually is, what is the ROI? Why should we do these initiatives? Can we postpone these initiatives to a later date as we have other priorities? This is not really a priority for us at this point. Again, going back to the ROI conversation. And ultimately, both procurement and business, if we look at the common conversation, so we say we don't have budget to consider sustainable alternates to what we're buying today, right? So from procurement, the core fundamental is, how do you change the buying habits? How do you move from what you buy today to a sustainable option? So picking on that theme, this is what we typically hear. If we have to buy something more sustainable, it's going to be more expensive. We're not sure if it's going to be good or no. These are typical conversations. And at the end of the day, the result is that we don't end up building strong business cases for moving to sustainable alternates. Next slide, please. So what's missing in this conversation? There are key fundamental things. If we consider this, our business case for moving to sustainable buying practices will become a lot more stronger and adaptable in an organization. So first of all, what's the problem statement? When you go and say, we need to have sustainable initiatives, what does that mean? So you need to understand, as procurement, you need to understand your ecosystem. You need to understand what your organization does. What is its footprint? What influence does it have on its supplier network, right? So what is the capacity? What is the 3 to 5 year plans of your organization? What are they looking to do? What are the goals? And how does sustainability fit into those goals? Or what is the best outcome that you can achieve by introducing or influencing procurement sustainable goals in there? So once you understand the problem statement, you are able to go with the right proposition to business. This is the core fundamental. I'm sorry, I think somebody's mic is unmute. Okay, moving on. second element is data. So, the second element is data. So when you make a business case, it needs to be supported with data. If you need to talk with numbers. So today, what you're buying, at what cost are you buying? What is the state? There was a point which Faiq made earlier about MPS, right? So managed print services. If we take that as an example, what are the numbers today? So if you have managed print services, what is the electricity being consumed? What is the number of papers being consumed? Is it energy efficient or no? So unless you know this information, there is nothing that you can do. So talking with data and numbers is absolutely critical. The third element is market intelligence. Again, I'm going to refer back to some conversations which happened earlier. We need to understand what is available in the market, right? So if we are going to take sustainable initiatives, if I refer to an example, we did an exercise in my previous company on managed print services. So we actually went to our supplier and said, hey, we are looking at sustainability as one of the key criteria. Could you share with us what are you doing, or what are the R&D practices, or what are the best practices that you as an organization are doing as a manufacturer, you are doing to enhance your products? And when we heard what they were doing, this is something we could take back to our management and say, these are the practices which are available in the market. If we switch, this is what we are spending today. This is what we will spend tomorrow. And on a longer term, what is going to be the return on investment if I switched my machines into more energy efficient machines, or if I switch this to a new product where, X number of trees will be planted, and so on and so forth. So now we have a compelling case where, we've looked at the data, we've understood what our company is looking to do, and we've understood what's in the market. So ultimately, all of this shapes up into the outcome. So when we say we need to take sustainability initiatives, what is the purpose? And by doing it, what is the outcome that we are going to give? How is the business going to benefit from it? There's a very simple example that I use very often. It's the most simplest example, but with a very big impact. So paper cups, when we buy in our organizations, it's a tactical spend. Nobody focuses on it. But we took this as an opportunity, converted this with impactful numbers. So the spend value was not high, but the consumption value was very high. So when we use that as a matrix to say, we have an impact on the environment. Why are we buying so many plastic cups? Or why are we buying so many paper cups? We phased that out. We implemented sustainable mugs for everybody, personalize it with the organization's branding, and link this into our marketing initiative. So marketing was able to leverage this to showcase the company as moving towards sustainability. 2, we got rid of that spend where we were buying paper and plastic cups. And 3, we became sustainable. And more important than all of that, what we really gained is the community, the internal organizational community started to talk about sustainability. They started to come back to procurement and say, hey, what next? Where else can we do it? So I think this is the value that procurement has, that when you use all of these elements to create a business case, it can be a very powerful tool for an organization to use and align this to the strategic objectives of the company. Guy, we can go to the next slide. Now, this is a strategic engagement model that I use. It's not only about having a sustainable policy, like Faiq said. It's about creating the awareness. And this is where procurement plays a very vital role in providing the organization with the right tool, information, and a baseline that the company can use to really make a difference. And here, if you see, we have different elements. We start with understanding what are the top drivers of the organization. So what is the organization looking to do? In my previous company, one of the objectives was that we want to be completely sustainable as an organization. This is a very big objective, right? So procurement alone is not driving it. What could we do? So we looked at where were we spending, what were our trends, We identified gaps into our CapEx buying. We identified gaps into our the end of the life cycle. When we are disposing products, we realized we were doing a lot which was going into landfill. So we started to look at these as our opportunities where procurement could drive a value, where we could really make a difference. So we picked these top drivers which would align with the organization's goal. We started to break it down and say, right, we identified the challenge and the problem statement. Let's assess the impact that if I make a shift, what does it mean on a holistic level and on an organization level? We quantified those into numbers. Then we collaborated with our suppliers. So there was a lot of study which was done where we sat with our suppliers. We actually, in my previous organization, created something called a sustainability garage. And this was an opportunity. This was a collaboration platform with our vendors where we told them, why don't you come and tell us what is happening in sustainability? What exactly are you doing with your product lines that can benefit us as an organization? And the results were amazing. Everything from marketing spend to CapEx spend to disposals, we made a difference to all of these categories without actually spending more money. So we looked at the way of optimizing our spend to ensure we were moving towards eco-friendly products, at the same time creating awareness within the organization. I think this is the biggest important piece, because stakeholders are the one who are going to make a difference. Guy, can you go back to the previous slide? Right, so creating awareness with stakeholders is very important. And this is what the Sustainability Garage did for us. We bought products and we invited our stakeholders to say, you don't need to buy anything. We're not trying to sell any products. We want you to go and see what is available in the market. And when you're ready and you have projects, we can look at these products to see how they meet your needs. So this is how we started to penetrate into our spend from non-sustainable to sustainable. So this is where we started to.
Vidya, sorry to push you along a bit. Could you wrap up in 1 minute? I'm just conscious of time. I want to make sure we've got some good conversation later. Thanks.
Understood. Right, so we can go to the next slide. So to wrap it up, how can we influence future outcomes? Your supplier network is key. Work with them. They will help you bring the influence and make sure that they're rewarded where they can get the business and benefit from it. So they keep innovating and bringing new things for you. Procurement mandates. Here, introduce KPIs into your category management, not to convert the spend, but to bring awareness of sustainability in the organization, because I think that is the first step. We're not at the second level, we're still at the first level. Build data capabilities at your pre-qualification stage to get the right information, and scale your growth by driving change in behavior and not just imposing policies. This is very important for an early engagement to have a very high impact. That's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. And a few things I took away. We'll probably get a few more questions about a sustainability garage, I think is what you said. Is that right? Sustainability garage. It's really interesting. And then also engagement with suppliers, which I think is, fundamental. That's fantastic. Thanks, Vidya. And now, lastly, Suwaid.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invite. And I think most of the topics were covered by my colleagues. However, I need to highlight some of the stuff that we do in Masdar City, being one of the most sustainable cities in the world, one of the biggest in the world. Masdar City itself contains around 18 buildings. Most of them, or all of them, are sustainably certified. And based on that sustainability measurement, if you can go to the next slide, Guy, please. So the vision of the city is to become one of the biggest sustainable cities in the world. And the goals that we have is to be carbon neutral, zero waste, and sustainable transportation within the city itself. So it goes without saying that sustainability was to be implemented across all the functions in the Masdar City itself. We're trying to be also the hub for clean technology companies, and we couldn't reach this place without having a unique sustainability actions. For us, sustainability starts from even before the design, including all the procurement, everything together. Next, please. So based on that, Masdar City became one of the largest hub of all the green tech, agri-tech, space tech entities within UAE. For example, university, we have two universities, Khalifa University and the AI University. We have G42, M42, IRENA, all of these, the biggest players in the UAE. Next, please. So, and within procurement, we had to create something that goes to the market and to inform our suppliers about our sustainability. So we created our own measurement here. These measurement that we call is sustainability procurement guidelines. We publish it to our bidders, and they need to confirm that they are following it. Of course, after that, we also run surveys to make sure that these are included in their guidelines, and we also implement it within our contracts. We are working on automating it, so a survey at the end of each year will be published to the vendors to make sure that they are following our sustainability guidelines. Next, please. So how do we implement these sustainability guidelines? So before, for example, during the supplier pre-qualifications, we request all the QHSE requirements. I think this is a unique standard between all the procurement professionals. However, within the RFP phase, we request for additional requirements. For example, we publish our own technical and istidama specifications to our buildings. We ensure that they follow our sustainability procurement guidelines. And for sure, we implemented ICV scoring, like my colleague Sulaiman said about the ICV scoring. He gave you a good example. For us, ICV scoring is very important. So we give an amount of the technical evaluation criteria to the ICV scoring. So you could either pass or fail based on your ICV scoring. And sometimes we give our preference to the most highest scorer. And of course, after the award, we make sure that all these KPIs were implemented within the contracts itself during the contract drafting. And next, please. So to ensure that these sustainability guidelines are implemented within the procurement function itself, we requested from a consultant to run a quick gap analysis into our system, for example. And he gave us the outcome. And to be honest with you, we used to have around 6 to 7 electronic systems working together. However, after this study, there was a mandate from the senior management is to implement only a unique system that goes through the full procurement cycle to ensure sustainability. So right now, if you go to the next, please. So we found a system after long studies and workshops. We selected a system and we added more templates to it. So the full RFP cycles, starting from supplier registration into contract drafting, into final award, even the electronic signature goes within the same system. And to ensure integrity also, we have our own dashboards, the CEO, CFO dashboards. They can go directly to the system and to ensure that the contracts status, the RFP status, where do we stand, where the delay is. On top of that, there is a pure audit trail. So if anybody wants to have or would see the audit trail, you can just within few clicks generate a report, and that I think eliminated the human error factor here. Of course, the system needs to be flexible, and we have reduced the number of complexity within the system. And in order to be more sustainable, we needed to modify our policies and procedures to make it much more resilient. Next. One of the good things about the system is, as I mentioned before, there is the ability to track the RFPs. It provides audit reports, and it has multiple reporting options. It reduces the risk of human errors, and we have the CEO, CFO dashboard, and finally, the reduction in printed material. I'm sure that you all know as procurement professionals that we usually print contracts, and these contracts goes into the routing cycle. At least 3 contracts to be printed. All of them needed to be initialed and signed. From being the most department that prints material, we became almost zero printing in our department. So I think that's one of the good things about the system. So what's the outcome of all the sustainability measurement that we have implemented within Masdar City? Our first awarded certified building was completed in 2014. The renewable energy that we used in that building itself was 2%, and the energy reduction was around 46% comparing to any building in Abu Dhabi. Due to the factors of the sustainability that we have implemented within procurement, within the designs, within the construction, within the site offices, these numbers have been increased. If you can go to the next slide, please. Right now, we have a self-sufficient buildings, or we can call them net zero energy buildings. Some of them are open for public. For example, the Masdar Eco Villa, but that we have established in 2017, that was open to all the public, so they can come and, or everybody can come to this villa and see how sustainability could be implemented within our lives in the UAE. We are also going into net zero in our next buildings as commercial buildings. You know, they are huge buildings and they host a lot of employees. However, we were able to reach sustainability, and hopefully we can go beyond this. I think that's it all. Thank you everyone for listening.
That's great. Thank you very much. Suwaid. So that's excellent. So can I remind everyone, please, we've got perfect 21 minutes left for a discussion, so that's great. Anyone's got any questions, please drop them into the chat or raise your hand and I'll bring you in. I've got a few questions here just to kick us off with. I'm going to start off with this one. I mean, I was really interested, Faiq, let's start off with you. I think it's, I mean, you define sustainability as a much broader sort of basis, so not just about the environmental side of things, but you picked up the social side of things. Do you see challenges across the industry trying to sort of trying to oversimplify what ultimately is a complex issue, or is it actually we need to simplify it, otherwise we'll never get there?
Interesting question, and I think this is where the biggest doubts are there, and every industry works in a different way. We cannot have a combination that fits all of these industries. Public sector, looking at the exhibitions, events industry, looking at the banking and financial services industry, especially in UAE, the BFSI sector has been one of the most advanced sector to take up these sustainability practices in terms of getting it within the function. So each industry is different. Looking at examples of sustainability, people usually relate it to manufacturing. So which is not the case. Sustainability can be applied to across the industries, but it behaves differently. The second is the region aspect. Uh, the way things have been progressed in the UAE, especially with the policies coming into place, with the COP 28 coming into place, with on and off practices happening, and UAE is one of the only countries where it was so easily accessible to go to a COP 28. I would probably not get an easy entry to any other place in the world, and it's important to you. So here in this region, it has been very widely accepted. Uh, People are adopting it, but there is a lot of awareness session that needs to take place. So a great example by Vidya, Sulaiman, and Suwaid sharing what they have done.
Yeah.
So that the other people can adopt. You cannot go big bang. The countries, the global outlook is 2050 net zero. So if I look at achieving in next just 1, 2, 5, or 10 years, no, sorry, it has to go step by step.
Okay.
Get your policies documented in place and the practical implementation as well.
Thank you for that. Sulaiman, can I ask you, I'm just interested from your perspective as within the government, Dubai, your Ministry of Taxation and Finance. Do you think your suppliers understand the wider issues of sustainability, and what role do you think policy making and regulation has in driving the change that you want?
Thank you. Another interesting question, Guy. When it comes to policy and procedure and strategies, I think in UAE is one of the great example of the country of implementing and mandating policies when it comes to any aspects of the policies. So it's not about only strategies and policies and procedure. However, how to drive change within the organization and government, that's the key question. And I think the initiative of ICV, I'll just share some of the numbers of this great initiative since it's published. Almost the ICV contribution to GDP of UAE is almost 3%, I believe now, and the aim is to increase this percentage with the years coming, and approximately 15,000 of jobs being created for UAE nationals in this private sectors. So if you see that it is there, it's been implemented. So it's not only a policy, it's not only a procedure, it's not only the awareness, but it's went to the awareness of the supplier side as well, where they are contributing in this initiatives, and the sustainability initiative in collaborating with the public sector.
That's really interesting. And just sticking with you, just remember, Sulaiman, when did ICV come in? How long has it been operating to create those 15,000 jobs?
2000, I think 2020 started with
in 2020.
One of the organization started this initiatives, and it's been now across the public sectors. Part of the policies and procedure and sourcing process as well.
And so what you found is that you need to use the policy to drive that change. I'm interested, Vidya, from your perspective, and we spoke about, which I think is relevant everywhere actually, the importance of supplier engagement. You spoke very eloquently about this supplier garage, which are actually fascinated. But do people come with their tools and you lift things up and you look underneath it? I mean, that's the vision I have, which is exciting. But this engagement, I mean, obviously from Sulaiman's perspective, you're not going to be able to deliver unless the supply chain is engaging in it. How important do you think is policy and regulation, and can we trust suppliers to get on with it or not really?
I think it's a little early to say that policy will get us the adoption. Policy is important, but are we there yet where we tell everybody, here's the policy, let's follow? I think we're still at the stage where procurement is gathering data. So if we talk about on ground, we're still trying to understand what is our supplier networks, carbon emissions, right? We don't understand that. So I think data is more critical at this stage to make sure that the policies that are getting implemented at a governmental stage can actually be adopted. The big players in the market, the bigger suppliers will adopt faster. Policy will work great with them. However, when we talk about smaller, more local suppliers, this is where we need to support them. This is where we need to ensure that we are first able to understand how they're running, and two, able to guide them on how to go on that path, because ultimately it's our supply chain. It works two ways, not one way.
Okay, yeah, that's good. And can I just ask, Suwaid, you just sticking with this subject matter in defining sustainable procurement, you mentioned that Masdar has sustainable guidelines. I think it was you spoke about, sustainable guidelines for Masdar. I mean, those presumably cover, not just the environmental side of things, but also cover the social, the economic side of things. Are those published? Are these things that, if someone's interested in understanding where Masdar sits on this, that can be downloaded?
Yeah, it's not published in our website. However, it's covered in our procurement e-procurement portal. So whenever a vendor is planning to submit a bid, he needs to go through these guidelines and confirm, acknowledge that he is following it. Those guidelines were created by the United Nations and the International Labour Organization. Plus, we also have our own sustainable unit.
Okay.
So we gathered most of the most important things that we think that people should follow, and then we have created these guidelines. So, for example, in the past, we used only to follow QHSE the guidelines, which became now the least, I'm going to call, like one of the things that we used to think about very, very difficult, but right now it became one of the things that the easiest things due to the certifications that the ISO and the quality can publish.
Okay, excellent, good. I'm just going to encourage people to drop questions into the chat or the Q&A. We do have a question here from Falaf. And forgive me if I've pronounced your name wrong, but this is probably for Sulaiman. Are the ICV criteria defined in UAE procurement law, and are the percentage in weightings, that 25% weighting, is that in law as well?
Yeah, is it? It's part of the federal policies of procurement. It's been mandated on all federal organizations to follow. And the good thing is it's not an optional. We have a centralized system which mandate that you cannot go to next step with the awarding processes unless you fulfill, this weight and this requirement. So it's like a mandatory is not only in the policy, but in the system as well.
Okay, that's really useful to understand. Good. And Suwaid, I just wanted to follow up just quickly. I was really fascinated by the journey that you showed, which was really quite, 2014 all to where we are now, which is, so you started out having a little bit of, I think the first one was 30% energy efficiency and just 2% in terms of the energy generation, all the way to net zero now, which is really exciting. And that journey, I think, is what sort of, in terms of that journey, what's missing, do you think? That where haven't you been able to succeed so far?
So I would say that two things are missing here. That's in my experience. One of them is the government regulations that imposes sustainability material, for example. And the second one is we managed to build a building that is a net zero, but until now we couldn't reach net zero due to the transportation. So I'm going to say technology hasn't reached that limit of transportation, sustainable transportation.
Okay, so you're being held back by technology a little bit, right?
Yes.
You're waiting for it to jump in. Okay. Yeah. Just before I ask the panel any more questions, Charlotte has very politely raised her hand. So why don't we ask Charlotte to jump in with a question?
Yes, and I just wanted to say to everybody else here, do feel free to, if you want to really speak, put your hand up. I can take you off mute and we can have a little bit more of an interactive session. Really enjoyed the presentation, and it was spoken about cultural change in a few of your presentations. How do you feel progress is looking in terms of leadership, really paving the way, leading by example, walking the walk, not just talking the talk? Do you think there's enough of that happening? Do you think more needs to happen there?
That's good. Okay, and I'll tell you what, let's ask Vidya and then Faiq to come in with that. Vidya, why don't you just give your reflection of someone who's been working in the region, then we'll ask Faiq to contribute.
I think awareness, it has greatly increased in the region. Adoption, I think, like I said in my presentation, there's a lot of conversation about ROI, because business at the end of the day is still coming down to the money we're spending. So I think adoption will increase, and complemented by all the policies and the regulations which are coming in. I think leading by example will improve, because even from a customer point of view, those industries which are very much dependent on their customers for sales are obviously shifting faster, because the customer is demanding that awareness of sustainability is there in the market. So those industries are progressing faster. The other ones are a little bit slower than that, but yes, there is a progress.
That's okay. That's great. Thanks so much. And Faiq, what's your view on that question that Charlotte posed?
Yeah, so in alignment with what she highlighted about the industries, I would say if it has to be category specific for, let's say, pharmaceuticals, FMCG sector, anybody who's manufacturing within UAE needs to get a better percentage. Anybody who's getting it from outside the world. And that's what has been implemented within the Abu Dhabi government, within the Dubai state government as well, that a lot of these things, when there is a manufacturer trying to manufacture within UAE, the medications, the other requirements, they should get a little bit of a benefit edge, because they are getting those active pharma ingredients, the APIs that translate into a product, the final medication. Those products are being brought in different environment conditions. So and taking that first step ahead within the region, when it was not in good practice, when it was not in looking at a percentage, it's roughly about 4 to 5% being manufactured in UAE and consumed versus what comes from outside, approximate percentage.
Okay.
So I think those kind of things, industry specific, category specific, could make a big contribution.
Okay, great. And Sulaiman, I'm interested. I mean, we've just drifted into leadership now, which is, I mean, plainly I think on your own LinkedIn, you talk about yourself being a change agent, which implies leading from the front, driving change, right? And it's easy to talk about change, but what do you see as being the biggest challenge or challenges that you as an individual have faced around embedding sustainability into procurement?
This is a very good question. I mean, you hit the most important topic that I like about talking about the leadership. Now I change it, by the way, it's not agent of change now, it's agent of value. So it's more, it's more broader, talking about change and value. Fine. I think I said it in a couple of discussion that the biggest challenges we see that people resistant of change. We resist to change. That's why I always promote to become an agent of change, to drive change within the organization. And to simplify this, I use this formula always, and I share it with my colleagues and everyone I know, that use the formula of each one teach one. Someone has to take an ownership to drive this change. If we talk about sustainability when it comes to the organization, someone has to lead it. So you become that person. And with that journey, you need to get other people. I consider them as an agent of change in different organizations and different departments. So you start creating that common language within the organization, so people will start hearing about sustainability. So you're just trying to change that mindset of people about sustainability. Then you're going to the actions. You know, I always believe that it is 20% strategy, but 80% is about the mindset and behavior.
Yes, I mean, talking about alignment, and I don't know if Kenneth Joseph has just dropped I don't know if you can unmute Kenneth, or Kenneth, you want to just jump in. Really challenging comment that Kenneth made in the chat. Do you want to raise that in person, Kenneth?
I believe he may have left us.
He may have left. Okay, well, it doesn't matter. But I think he talks about alignment, which I think is really important. And Sulaiman, you were kind of talking about, I mean, you were implying the importance of alignment and culture around that. And I think that's fundamental. And just bring it back to you, Suwaid. I mean, I think what we've seen is that change over time on your journey. And presumably that means that you've got over a lot of the challenges that you were facing at the beginning, and do you have 100% alignment, or is there still sort of a way to go?
No, for sure. I mean, as Sulaiman said, some people, there is a resistance to change, and if there is a new product that we know we want to use that is available in the market, we cannot use it unless we set up the regulations first, and we need to get all the approvals from the governmental entities. And in addition to this, there is also some lack of commitments from other stakeholders who are not really familiar with sustainability measurements, and they think that sustainability would cost them more money. Well, in fact, it's not, and it should be more. It adds more advantage to them.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that Vidya spoke about, isn't it? This knee-jerk reaction that everyone thinks it costs more, right? Which, it's something that's really important to break. And plainly at Masdar, you've managed to get over that challenge. Good. Okay, I'm conscious of time. We've got just a few minutes left, and I want to ask you all to be visionaries just for a moment, if I may. Ask you about the vision you have for your region. Let's say 2030, and it could build on COP28, however you want to do it. Let's just go round the table, just sort of get your just 30 seconds of vision. Let's start with you, Vidya, and then we'll go to Faiq.
Okay, so if I have to talk about vision, I would say that if we are in a state where importance of sustainability doesn't need to be explained, it's actually owned by everybody, everybody understands that they are responsible for this planet and making the difference, I think everything falls into place. So for me, that would be a good place if everybody understands their responsibility.
That's great. I really like that, taking ownership, right, which is so important. Faiq, what about you? What's your vision for the region for 2030?
2030, everybody realizes that it is my responsibility. Anything that happens gives back to me, to the generations to come. And and clear milestones until that time is something that would be something to look at by 2030, and a happy and healthy environment.
Happy, healthy environment and communities. Excellent. Good. And Suwaid, what about you? Where do you want Masdar to be by 2030?
Well, it's our target, to be honest, to reach net zero target. And by 2030, so I would really love to see more modified rules and regulations that supports us into our journey.
That's great. Okay, that's interesting. You're asking for more regulation, and that's fascinating. And then finally, Sulaiman, what about you? Where do you want Dubai to be and the region?
The vision, to be honest, we want to see Dubai, to have our own standard. We create the standard of sustainability, and we drive this and lead all other countries in the world. So we become the standard. Plus, when it comes to procurement, I think it's time. I have said it many times. It's time to change. I think procurement as a name, as a word, it's maybe after COVID-19, it's a little bit perceived as an outdated word. So I think it's time to change it to value. So it's not only procurement, we are talking about value. And you know, people perception about values won't change unless you start changing it and give it as a name, you know.
Okay, that's great. Charlotte, I think we've got a call there to change SPP to SVP, Sustainable Value Pledge, right?
Yeah,
I think
maybe.
that's what we're asking for.
Yeah.
Isn't that right, Sulaiman? Good.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay, everybody, that's been just a really, really interesting sort of hour and a quarter. So can I thank our speakers for such a really interesting sort of session. Vidya, Suwaid, Faiq, and also Sulaiman, really great to hear what you've been contributing to and the leadership you're showing in the region. And just the final thing, if anyone wants to join the Sustainable Procurement Pledge, which is soon to be changing its name to the Sustainable Value Pledge, then please do. We will welcome everyone. And in particular, if you want to join the Public Procurement Chapter, go onto the site and then join, and then we'll make sure we're involved in all of the ongoing conversations. So with that, let me make a final thank you to our wonderful speakers, and thanking you for giving up an hour and a quarter of your time to listen to our guests. Thank you and goodbye.